There's a shadow that haunts every writer, a moment when the page stares back blankly, when words refuse to come, when even the simplest sentence feels impossible. We call it writer's block. Some say it's real, a creative paralysis as natural as fatigue. Others claim it's nothing more than an excuse, a way to avoid the hard, messy work of writing. So which is it? Is writer's block real, or is it a story we tell ourselves to justify inaction? Today we're diving deep into the psychology, history, and myths around writer's block, and by the end, you'll see it in a way you never have before. For centuries, writers have described their battles with silence. Franz Kafka wrote in his diary about nights staring at his desk in despair. F. Scott Fitzgerald confessed in letters that he felt like his talent had abandoned him. Even greats like Maya Angelou admitted to sitting in hotel rooms for weeks, trying to coax words out of thin air. These stories give writer's block a mythical quality, as if it's a curse that descends on the chosen ones, striking unpredictably. But here's the danger. When we mythologize the struggle, we also give it more power. We turn an ordinary challenge into a monster. Maybe the first step to understanding writer's block is to demystify it, to stop seeing it as a mysterious illness, and instead see it as a symptom, a signal. Psychologists actually began studying writer's block seriously in the mid-20th century. In 1947, a psychiatrist named Edmund Bergler coined the term writer's block and described it as a neurotic inhibition of productivity. He thought it stemmed from unconscious conflicts, perfectionism, and fear of failure. Modern psychology gives us a more nuanced view. Writer's block can come from many sources. Perfectionism, the need for every word to be flawless before it's even on the page. Fear of judgment, worrying more about how others will perceive your work than about expressing yourself. Decision fatigue, too many choices paralyze you before you start. Burnout, the brain simply being exhausted. Lack of clarity, not knowing what you actually want to say. In other words, writer's block isn't a disease, it's a cluster of mental roadblocks. It's real, but it's not mystical. It's the mind protecting itself or rebelling or stalling out. Now, let's flip the coin. Many working writers, especially those on deadlines, argue that writer's block is simply an excuse. They say it's a convenient label for procrastination. Take the journalist and novelist William Goldman. He once said writer's block. I've heard of plumber's block, but never seen one. In other words, writers romanticize their labor in ways other professions don't. No plumber walks into your house and says, "Sorry, I've got plumber's block. Can't fix your sink today." The argument here is simple. Writing is work. Sometimes it's joyful, sometimes it's grueling. But you don't need to feel inspired to do it. You just need discipline. If you show up, sit at the desk, and type, even badly, you're writing. And bad writing can always be revised into something better. So maybe writer's block is less about words refusing to come, and more about writers refusing to write badly. Let's look at some examples. Stephen King. He writes 2,000 words a day, every day, even on his birthday, even on Christmas. His philosophy is that inspiration is for amateurs. Professionals write whether they feel like it or not. Ernest Hemingway. He said, "There is nothing to writing. All you do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed." He didn't deny the struggle, but he refused to call it a block. For him, it was about persistence. Haruki Murakami. He treats writing like training for a marathon. Wake up early, run, write, repeat. His point? The muse arrives only if you show up daily to meet her. These writers remind us that the best antidote to writer's block may simply be motion, action, words on the page, no matter how messy. But here's the interesting part. If writing is just work, why do we cling so tightly to the idea of writer's block? Because it protects us. It gives us an out. If you believe in writer's block, then not writing isn't your fault, it's the block's fault. You get to avoid the shame of procrastination. You get to stay in the safety of potential instead of the risk of execution. Writer's block then becomes a shield against fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection. Fear that the masterpiece in your head won't survive translation to the page. And let's be honest, sometimes it feels better to say I'm blocked than to say I'm scared. Here's where science gives us another angle. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi introduced the concept of flow, that state where creativity feels effortless, time disappears, and you're fully absorbed. Writer's block is often the opposite of flow. Instead of immersion, there's detachment. Instead of momentum, there's friction. What breaks the block? Small steps, lowering expectations, writing a single bad sentence, giving the brain something to grab onto. Because once you start moving, momentum carries you into flow. It's like starting a car on a cold morning. The first turn of the key is hard, the engine sputters, but once it catches, the ride feels smooth. We've said writer's block can be an excuse, but sometimes it's also a signal, a way of telling you something's off. Maybe you're exhausted and need rest. Maybe your idea isn't ready yet. Maybe you're forcing yourself to write something you don't care about. Maybe you're burned out from treating creativity like an assembly line. In those cases, writer's block isn't laziness, it's a wake-up call. It's your inner compass saying, pause, reflect, realign. So how do you know if writer's block is an excuse or a signal? You test it. You try. And here are practical ways to break through. Lower the bar. Give yourself permission to write badly. Bad pages are better than blank pages. Set tiny goals. Instead of aiming for 2,000 words, aim for 100. Small wins create momentum. Change your environment. Sometimes a new space unlocks fresh energy. Free write. Put the pen down and write nonstop for 10 minutes. No editing. Read instead of write. Fuel the mind. Inspiration often comes from others' words. Rest. Sometimes the cure is sleep, not struggle. Create rituals. Light a candle, play music, make tea, signal to your brain that it's time to write. Here's the paradox. Writer's block is both real and not real. It's real in the sense that it feels paralyzing, painful, frustrating. Anyone who's stared at a blank page knows the ache. But it's not real in the sense that there's nothing physically preventing you from typing words. The barrier is mental, not material. So the truth may be this: writer's block is not a wall. It's a mirror. It shows you what's really going on inside. Fear, perfectionism, exhaustion, lack of clarity. It's not the enemy of writing, it's the teacher. So, is writer's block real or just an excuse? It's both. It's real in how it feels, but it's an excuse if you let it control you. The block itself doesn't stop you. What stops you is believing in the block more than you believe in your ability to push through. Writing has always been a conversation between courage and fear. The blank page is not your enemy, it's your invitation. Every time you face it, you're not just writing words, you're writing yourself into existence. And maybe the real question isn't, is writer's block real? But what story are you telling yourself when you feel blocked? Because The moment you change that story, you change everything. So next time you sit down and the words won't come, remember, you're not cursed, you're not broken, and you're not alone. You're simply human. And the cure isn't waiting for inspiration. The cure is showing up, putting down one imperfect word after another and trusting that clarity comes through movement. After all, writing isn't about finding the perfect words, it's about daring to put down the imperfect ones until the truth finally emerges.